Welcome to the Empowered Spirit Show. This is your host, Terry Ann Hyman. I'll explore the connection to the human spirit in a way that helps to navigate your life, including crisis. I am passionate about helping you to open up to your intuition and the metaphysical world of spirit to find your confidence in your own inner guidance. Take a pause, be inspired, learn ways to show up focused, centered, and more dynamic in your everyday life.
Welcome back to the Empowered Spirit Show. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining me today. This episode is being sponsored by Ritual and Shelter. Are you looking for a magical place to shop and hold space? Check out Ritual and Shelter online or in Homewood, Alabama. Browse through their bookshelves covering topics such as energy healing, crystal healing, Reiki, chakras, auras, the Akashic Records, shadow work, astrology, and earth-based healing. You can also find herbal teas and tinctures alongside their crystals and oils to help establish a mindful mindset and fluid ambience before meditation, ritual work, and reflection. Ritual and Shelter is dedicated to providing one-on-one, in-depth conversations with customers to help them find the most efficient healing methods and resources that match their unique interest and energy. They offer tarot sessions, Reiki, sound bowl, and crystal healing, and now they are offering witch consultations. Visit ritualshelter.com to book an appointment and bring peace back to the body, mind, and spirit. You can also find them on Instagram at Ritual Shelter Shop, as well as Pinterest at Ritual Plus Shelter. As this podcast goes to air, we are in a new month, October, and headed towards a full moon in Aries on Monday. While the light of the moon is increasing, the light of the sun is decreasing. The days are getting shorter, and we are starting to feel the shift into fall, this new season. What is that for you? What are you noticing? The season of fall brings that whole idea of the cycles of life. I talk about it in the direction of the west where the sun sets. We do feel the struggles. We do notice these things happening. The light shifts, the days get shorter, the leaves are turning and falling to the earth, all representing the shift of energy. And the spirit is starting to be called within. So it is a time to notice your own path, your energy, the harvesting of your work. We find it this year, the letting go. And we notice some of the struggles with those cycles of life, the death and the rebirth. A full moon in Aries signifies a period of heightened emotions. We feel a little bit more of that fire. We're into the season now. It is highlighting that balance of energy between self-interest and relationships. And right now we've got that with the energy of Libra of relationships and that fire, that ego-oriented Aries energy, although it doesn't always have to be ego-oriented. We do have that encouragement of self-power, self-empowerment, raw emotional energy coming forward as well. Aries gives us that ability to be that spiritual warrior, to make swift decisions with our life and our path. It does have a little tension in the air between the two signs of that sun relationship focus of Libra and Aries, but like I said, it isn't time to embrace your warrior spirit, to use this time to break free of the limitations we put on ourselves and step into your most empowered, self-driven self. It is a time to trust your instincts, pay attention to what your gut feelings are, and especially be ready to act on them even when you're not sure it's the rational thing to do. Most times that instinct, that gut feeling is telling us exactly what we need to do. It's also time to prioritize yourself, making sure that you take time for your own needs, get some downtimes, don't keep yourself too busy, and recognize that it is important when we put self-care and ourselves at the top of the list instead of the bottom. So important that we do have that time to understand our true nature. And it's also a time to understand and address toxic patterns. Look for opportunities to let those patterns go, even people that aren't serving you in your highest capacity. So important to recognize these relationships. And if you are feeling like I keep repeating the same patterns, calling those same people into my life, maybe it is an opportunity to recognize what that is for you and why you hold on, repeating those patterns. And if you do feel like this, perhaps it is a time to step out of your way. Schedule a spiritual upgrade breakthrough call with me, and let's talk about what it is that's keeping that cycle going and keeping you stuck in your old patterns. We are at this time in humanity where we are expanding our consciousness and opening up to the deeper parts of who we truly are. But if we keep attracting the same thing and doing it the same way, we're going to feel that we are stuck. And it can happen. I understand that. So if you are ready to make a shift, schedule that call with me. And let's talk about that number one thing getting in your way and how you can begin to step forward with ease and grace into a deeper part of who you truly are and live that purpose that you are here for. I'll put the link for the call in the show notes. So as many of you know, on the podcast, I do interview a lot of spiritual authors. So in today's episode, I really kind of want to talk a little bit about the whole art of writing and how it can be a spiritual process that we can bring forward as well. So my guest is Lanier Isom, a local to Birmingham and author of Grace and Grit: How I Won My Fight at Goodyear and Beyond, the life story of Alabama native Lilly Ledbetter, the namesake of President Obama's first piece of legislation, the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Restoration Act. The film had its world premiere at the 2024 Hamptons International Film Festival. Blue Harbor Entertainment released Lilly exclusively in theaters in May of 2025, and I am so grateful to have seen it myself. Before we jump into the interview and talk to Lanier, let's take a moment to pause and center and set an intention for this full moon energy. So wherever you are, if you can, close your eyes for a few moments. Taking a nice deep inhale, breathing up the body. And as you exhale, just call all your energy into you. Call it in, slowing down. Inhale, expanding the breath up the body. And as you exhale, bringing that breath all the way down, slowing down, centering. Inhale, expanding the breath up the body. And as you exhale, dropping right into the heart, right into the deepest part of your heart. Feel that connection, your spirit and the greater spirit. Know that you are loved, guided, protected. Feeling all this energy around us as we set this space, calling in our Reiki masters, calling in the teachers that come before us, calling in your angels for joy and love to open the heart, calling in our crystal beings for amusement, magnification, setting this space all around us as we acknowledge this new season of fall, in the direction of the west where the sun sets each and every day. We recognize the cycles of life. To the west and the north, the east and the south, above us, below us, right into the very center. Setting an intention under this full moon energy for your highest potential to come forward. See and hear and feel and know these intentions and let them radiate out all around you, setting that energy. Taking one more deep inhale. And exhale, grounding your energy all the way down, grounding in the body, feeling the heart opened, feeling the illumination of your third eye. And as you're ready, blinking the eyes open, coming back. So my guest today, Lanier Isom, is a journalist and the author of Grace and Grit, the life story of fair pay advocate Lilly Ledbetter. The film Lilly, based on the book, is now available on Amazon. Isom's work has appeared in Al Jazeera, LA Times, Huffington Post, Salvation South, The Bitter Southerner, and she's a frequent contributor to Inside Climate News. The recipient of the Alabama Library Association Nonfiction Award, she is also awarded a 2023 fellowship from the Alabama State Council on the Arts and recently won awards from Alabama Media Professionals and the National Federation of Press Women. So let us welcome Lanier to the show. Welcome, Lanier.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm so excited to talk to you. And oh my gosh, I want to gush all over you because I'm so proud of you. Oh my gosh, you had this dream. You wrote your book with Lilly and you made it into a movie and it happened. And this is a couple of years. Yeah.
Ooh, many years.
And you didn't give up and you kept going. And what a fantastic movie. And what a great way to bring your work out and just have this. It's such an important work. Equal pay. It really is. So
Right.
congratulations on all of that. It makes me so happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
So let's just kind of go back a little bit, Lanier, and talk about what led you to write. Like, how did you become a writer? I interview a lot of authors. So let's just ask that question to get started.
So I think a lot of it had to do with growing up here in Birmingham. I had parents who loved books, who loved art, who surrounded themselves with artists and creative people, and they had a lot of respect for the written word. So even in high school, I was an avid reader. I took creative writing, and, I knew I wanted to be a writer, but I really had no idea what that meant besides some sort of novelist. And I went to Tulane in New Orleans and got an English degree. And again, really no concrete goal, because most of everything I've done in my life has been a decision based on very practical, immediate needs or financial concerns. So I graduate from Tulane. I have this very fancy degree in English, wonderful education. I was exposed to women's studies at the time, but, I graduated in 87, so this is a good while back. I come home to Birmingham, and I can't find a job with my degree. I cannot find a job. The only thing I could find to do at that point was to sell children's shoes at a local department store.
Let me ask you a question. Was it Tulane or was it still Sophie Newcomb?
It was still Sophie Newcomb. It was most absolutely Sophie Newcomb. So it was a women's college within Tulane University. And
I think that's important to recognize too, because really they weren't helping back then. I know I'm like I'm probably a little older than you, but helping in terms of the business aspects of it.
Right. And, another thing that they didn't do, and I don't even know if a lot of colleges do it now, but I think there's more awareness around it, certainly did not teach me how to think about pay and money and negotiate salaries. And, as Lilly would say, she liked to tell college students, your first job is very important, because even though you're not even thinking about retirement, how much you pay is going to determine, the health of your retirement. So you have to be able to negotiate pay. I was just happy to get a paycheck.
Right. Most of us are. I agree. Right. And, I'm of that generation too. Yeah.
But so money talk was not something very comfortable for me. But so I went back after doing sales, which I'm not good at. I mean, selling children's shoes wasn't that complicated. They needed them. But I went and got my master's at UAB here in Birmingham in English. And I started teaching as a graduate student. And then I fell into teaching at my old high school as a substitute teacher. And then that that became a full-time job, which I taught for over 11 years at Altamont School and a public suburban high school called Mountain Brook High School. And then when my son was about 2, I decided I wanted to do something else. And I got into PR. But as a teacher, I started writing book reviews for the local publications, because I knew I needed something to be able to show people. And so I started doing PR, which led to a job as a magazine editor at Birmingham Home and Garden magazine, which was just great fun. And then when my daughter was about 2, I started freelance writing. But I'll tell you, Terry, that every job I've ever had, I had no idea. I was not trained to do it. I was not trained to be a teacher or a magazine editor or a PR hack. I knew how to learn. How a humanities education taught me how to learn. So I just learned on the job. You just get in there and do it. So I did. And then I started freelancing full time in probably about the mid 2000s. And that's when in 2009, President Obama signed into law the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Restoration Act.
All right, well, let's pause there for a moment because everything you've said is so important getting to where you just said. So let's just back up a moment because first off, our generation, especially my generation, I was born in the late 50s. I'm not sure when you were born, but
1965.
Okay, so we were not given the opportunity. Business was not a big deal. Even business for women, business schools aren't as important either, right? And so we weren't given that. And so it became, like you said, like learning on the job. What kind of job will take me? Same thing for me. I have a fine arts major, right? I ended up using it because I was a photography and I used it for photography, not dance, not performing arts, but it was the photography that I used. But we weren't really given that. And then now here you come along, you're writing, you're doing everything you can and using your skills, right? I think that's awesome, right? We're using our skills. Yeah. And now how did you meet Lilly?
Okay. So I love writing about the South, about Alabama, about people in the state, about social justice issues, women's issues, especially because one thing I did have at Tulane was an introduction to women's studies. And I took several courses and that was very important. And, I was raised by a second wave feminist in the sense that in the 70s, my mother was, one of the millions of women newly divorced. She was hustling and struggling to find a job and support her kids after my father left. So I have this awareness about women's issues, one from personal experience growing up, seeing my mother struggle, and two, just, my education. So women's issues are always important to me, and everybody knows that who knows me. So, and Hugo, my husband, came home one day and he said, because he knows I'm always looking for story ideas. He said, do you know about a woman named Lilly Ledbetter? And I didn't. So I quickly Googled her and found out who she was. She's from Possum Trot, Alabama. That's where she grew up. And she was living in Jacksonville, Alabama, which is in North Alabama at the time. And Obama, like I said earlier, had just signed into act the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Restoration Act. So I called her because I thought, I wanted to do a profile for a local or statewide magazine. And at that point, literally the world was on her doorstep. I mean, there were reporters from across the country, from, international reporters, all wanted a piece of Lilly. So when I called little old Lanier Isom from Birmingham, Alabama, she said, I'm up to my knees in alligators, and hung up. And I was like, oh dear. So I gathered my courage.
Alligators.
Yeah, and that became the name of a chapter, Up to My Knees in Alligators. I gathered my courage, called her back. I met her, I interviewed her. I knew in my gut that I wanted, that this was a special, important story. And she was a very special person. And so I wrote the magazine article. And that's how we met, just because I'm always looking for ideas and, people know what I'm looking for. And so the universe, I could not have planned that. I believe as writers, as artists, often if we do the work, if we show up daily, we can have our plans and we can have our goals, but sometimes there's a lot of serendipity and synchronicity that aligns that there's no way that you could consciously orchestrate. But so I feel like Lilly was a gift and it worked out.
So you finally reached her. She finally took your call. You wrote the article first. Like, where did that little connection finally, like just constantly knocking at her door? Like, what was the breakthrough?
Well, so after I wrote the article, and she really liked the article, I was talking to John Goldfarb, and this is how the book came about. And John Goldfarb is her attorney who represented her in her case that went all the way to the Supreme Court. So he said there was a literary agent sniffing around who wanted to represent Lilly in a book about her. And I asked him, do you have a writer? He said, no, but they were thinking about some people. And I said, well, please consider me. And at the time, I had a book length, a young adult manuscript that was unpublished, and it's still unpublished. But they knew they wanted an Alabama writer, or at least a Southern writer, because as you well know, Alabama is very complicated, and there's a nuanced view of life here that someone from the outside probably would not be able to articulate as well. Anyway, they picked me. John and Lilly decided, okay, Lanier, this is the person we think can do this. I showed the agent this manuscript, again, sort of back to the idea that do the work. I had high hopes for that manuscript. Maybe it'll be published one day, but it served a purpose. It showed the agent I could sustain a book length work. So the first thing you do when you write a nonfiction book is you have to write a book proposal, which again, I had never done. So I just got the template.
That's an art into itself, isn't it? Right? Learning to write those proposals. Yeah.
It really is. And so I just researched and learned and just did it. And I spent a lot of hours interviewing Lilly. She was on the road a good bit at that time, speaking and going around the country. And about 3 months into writing the book proposal, the agent said, I would send her pieces of it. She said, nobody's going to read this. I'm like, oh dear, what are you talking about? And she's like, you're not getting what you need from Lilly. Because think about it. So Lilly Ledbetter was born in the early 30s. She's one of the greatest generation. She's very stoic. She worked at a Goodyear tire manufacturing plant for 20 years. Just the grueling physical challenges of that, plus all of the harassment that she experienced.
Give us that time frame from she's 50s.
So in 1979, she went to work at Goodyear because they were opening their doors to women and blacks. And they had a new radial plant. So she applied because it was the best job around in Gadsden, Alabama, which is very near Jacksonville. And so that was 79, and she was 40 when she started working there. And she worked there for almost 20 years until she found out she wasn't getting paid the same as the male managers. And that's when she sued. She won in the Northern District Court of Alabama, $3 million. Then Goodyear appealed. She lost. They said she should have sued within 180 days of working at Goodyear. But at that time, she was actually making the same as the other managers. It went all the way to the Supreme Court. She lost there, but Ruth Bader Ginsburg stood up and said, Lilly, you've got to change the law back to its original intent, which means that she was able to make it so that each new discriminatory paycheck starts the clock for that 180-day period, which is the window you have to sue once you find out you've been discriminated against. Okay, so Lilly is this incredibly stoic person. She worked at Goodyear. She put up with all that. She sued. It took almost 10 years for that lawsuit to make its way to the Supreme Court, and then for her to campaign with, women's groups to make it a law. So she's not one to be very vulnerable. And I went one day up to Possum Trot with her, and we were at the family cemetery, and she was standing next to her grandfather's grave, and she said, my grandfather Tot tried to kill my dog Buzz once, but Edna, her mother, backed him down with a butcher knife. And that's when I knew we had connected. And from that point on, things were easier.
Yeah, some of that deeper insight. Yeah. But what an amazing woman, like you said. And oh my gosh, I'm thinking 50s. This was 70s, 80s. Oh my gosh. This is when I was off at college. Yeah, right. To think it was so long ago, but look at that. Yeah, that's incredible, right?
Right. But think about 1979 in North Alabama. Good old boys, their fathers, grandfathers, cousins, uncles have all worked at Goodyear. They did not want anybody telling them, much less a woman, what to do. And so she really had a challenge working there. And when she would tell me about the Goodyear experience, then I would call her the next day and she'd be like, well, I had nightmares again. I mean, it was very stressful for her. But
yeah, from your book and from the movie, some of the stuff that came out, it was just incredible. Even the
right.
abuse and the physical labor and the
Yes.
physical pain she went through is incredible. And to keep going and going and going and get it all the way
Right.
to where Obama actually made a law, that's just like amazing. And we owe so much to her and to you too for bringing that story out. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Well,
I sent it to my daughter. I think you know this. My listeners may not, but I did send it to my daughter because she did have to stand up to her company for abusive bosses. Yeah. And just to have the strength and to read it from somebody else's perspective, like it's so powerful in what we need today. And now with everything going on, even more so. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no doubt about that. We all need to channel our inner Lilly during these
We
times.
do need to tune into our inner Lilly. So you wrote the book, and the book came out when?
Long time ago, Terry. Girl, it came out in 2012. So here it comes out, 2012. I think I'm going on Oprah, and my career has started, and I am somebody, and I have arrived. Well, you know how these things go. The book did well, and, you know, got a lot of really, really good response. And that is when Rachel Feldman, the director and screenplay writer, optioned the book to make into a movie. But it took Rachel over 10 years of literally working day in and day out, knocking on doors, raising money, and dealing with Hollywood to get this movie made. So that was like another gigantic hurdle to get the story out. That, you know, Rachel is incredible because she persevered as well.
Yeah. And so did you. I think we met in like 2017, maybe. It was pre-COVID. I remember doing meditations, get the movie going, who's going to star in it, right? I do. So it even goes back that far. So even just some of that perseverance that you showed is very, very symbolic and representative of her energy as well to bring it forward. Yeah.
Right. And what I love about it is, so, you know, I was middle-aged when my first book was published. You know, Lilly was well into, how old was she when the Supreme Court, you know, what, 60, 70, you know, almost 70 when the law was signed. Rachel has the movie out and she just turned 70. So I think it's a testament to the power and wisdom of this last chapter of our lives with women, where a lot of times we can become invisible, but no, this is when we need to shine and take our experience and be mentors and continue to create and put out into the world. Like, we are a huge asset.
I know, and I feel the emotion, Lanier. That's not what I was expecting, but I feel that emotion because I'm making a big transition. And I'm moving from here and I'm going to be a part of my daughter's life and be a grandmother, you know, a Mimi. And that's very exciting. But what about the rest of me? And sometimes as our children get older and they have their families and all, we can start to feel that invisible energy too. Right.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, I think that's so powerful to hear, like, okay, Tara, your life's not over yet. And, you know, I think that's important for all of us and to have that perseverance. And I am surprised at how many people don't know who she is. I had somebody come into my yoga class with the same last name and did not know. And like, whoa, you know, and just talking to people, do you know who this is? Do you know what this is about? Especially we struggle in the workplace to find those salaries. And there's still a lot of that goes on down here. There really is. And if you're not aware, it's easy to get pushed under. Yeah.
Oh, it's a struggle. I mean, nowadays, there are a lot of people who don't even believe women should be in the workplace, period. So, you know, financial and economic independence is the key for women's equality. End of discussion. And that is why it's so threatening. And, for women like Lilly, the attitude, even as, in the late 70s, early 80s was, well, your husband is the head of the household. What you make is not important. And Lilly would always say, this is not a women's issue. It's a family, it's a community issue, because what women make, especially when there's so many in the workforce now and there are a lot of single moms, determines their children's education, their quality of life, as far as if they have shelter and food and clothes and everything. And it trickles down to the next generation. So economic independence for women and equality in the workplace is absolutely a priority. But there's a lot of pushback right now.
Yeah, I went back to work because I stopped working, had children that went through divorce. I was a single mom raising my kids, and I went back to work the late 90s. Yeah. No idea. No idea what to ask for. Where was I in relevance to where I was? And even asking for those raises, did not have the skills. Yeah.
Right.
So I was the mother that was working full time and everything else she could part-time, right? Just to keep the kids and giving them what they needed. And then I see with my children, my daughter, she went the opposite way. I'm never going to be like that. I am going to make sure I always make money. I have money. I, working up the corporate ladder. And she actually is very empowered to help other women too. So she has taken upon herself to also make sure that people are fair pay. And that's big. She works in HR and that talent acquisitions right now, but that's big on her list. Like, wait a minute. Same salary. So she's very big on that. And I could see how she learned from me, right? Some of the suffering I went through, but that's what we want our children to do, that, to learn and grow bigger and better. Yeah.
Right. And when we started out, men have had generations of pipeline and mentors and access. And when we were in the workforce, we're kind of looking around. There's no older woman to show us the ropes or, help guide us, or at least there wasn't for me. But now that's changing. It
is changing. And even here in Birmingham, let's just give Momentum a shout out, because Momentum is very big on helping women do that. And they have grown so much, now even up in Huntsville. So that is happening and it is going, but it's still hard. Many of my clients are working in corporate here, and it's still happening. Right. And so giving people, the women especially, their voice to open up is very powerful. And so when we can fall back on works like this, I mean, even not to say that we all have to go and get a law signed in our name, but that is a support for all of us. And thank goodness, Ruth Ginsburg Beta was still there to have that happen. Right. Yeah, absolutely. In Obama.
Well, because this is an issue from, as Lilly would say, from Walmart to Wall Street. Like, it is across the board.
Yeah. It really is. And so, I just honor you and all that you did to persevere and get the story out. And the movie they did a great job. They really did.
Great. I'm glad it was fun.
And you had a little part in there. I saw you. You were in the funeral, I think. Yes. How much fun. Yeah, definitely.
Yes, my son was also with me in the funeral scene.
Oh, I didn't catch him. I don't know him as well. I know we've talked about him, but I saw you. Yes. And it was really good. And a shout out to Sidewalk. I saw it here in Birmingham at Sidewalk. It was awesome. Yeah, for sure. But I think that all that is really amazing, and how you did take that project and persevere and keep going and work with it and learn so much from her. That's just amazing. It really is. Now, that's not all your work. So let's just expand that, because you're also really big at advocating for social justice, which is very important. Yeah.
Yes. So I do, I write as a freelance writer for Inside Climate News, which is a fabulous nonprofit news organization or newsroom, and it has reporters in every state. So I will write about, environmental issues in Alabama. I write about, women's issues. Write animal rights are really important to me, or just animal welfare. It's something that's close to my heart. But then I'll just write about dogs and psychics too. So it's just whatever moves me or keeps me up at night.
There you go. I love that. Yeah. And you did. I read recently one of your articles about the land and how the AI and the solar, the land farms, whatever you want to call them. And that was very eye-opening.
Oh, the data centers.
Yes.
Yeah. There's one a proposed data center outside of Birmingham that is a real bugaboo for that community and for all of us, because they are such huge energy sucks. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. It's not very eloquent, but they use so much power and water, and they destroy the environment. And
which I honestly, I was not aware of. And so I do use some AI. I do. I use some AI in my business for organization and stuff. And so now it makes me really aware every time I want to go use it. And yesterday I was over there cleaning up the little Cahaba Creek over there, because there are needed ways to give back, right? If I'm going to use it, I need to give back. And so I think that awareness opens us up, because I didn't know how it worked. I just thought, oh, it's somewhere out in space. It's up there in the cloud, wherever the cloud is. But again, it comes back down and really affects us here on Earth. So that was an awesome article. And that you have the ability to write even for that kind of advocacy is also another good point in your favor for writing. Now, let me ask you a question, because I am a spiritual show. Do you feel that writing can be a form of spirituality?
I think writing is, or any creative act as an artist, is definitely a spiritual journey. The creative act is an act of faith, because you may think you know where you're going when you look at that blank piece of paper or you start a project, but you're really just jumping into complete uncertainty, and you have to have faith. And there's a famous quote about writing being like driving a car or a truck in the dark without the headlights on. And you have to be open to what the work wants to be, despite your inner critic or your ego. The word inspiration literally means in spirit. So, and every time you write something or complete a book, you've started at the bottom of the mountain and you got to the top of the mountain, but each project is a different mountain. So it's not like, you hone your craft and your skills, but you have to be open. It is a sacred act, but it's not so sacred that you don't have to have discipline and show up every day or have some sort of routine, whether you are inspired or not. And so there will be days where you show up to the work and you struggle. And then there are other days where something just flows and opens up and you receive. I think ideas are separate energetic entities, honestly, and they find us and we find them. So yes, it is very much a spiritual journey, because there's uncertainty, there's a lot of faith involved, there's a lot of not knowing, and it is a lot of surrender and receiving. So if you can get your ego out of the way. Which is very hard.
Getting the ego. Yeah, right. Yeah, that is key too. Do you have a writing practice? Do you take a moment and do a meditation? Do you have any kind of writing guides?
I do. I can invoke writers who have, who are no longer alive for some reason. As crazy as it sounds, Ernest Hemingway is a guide for me. A man's man. Go figure. And so there are other writers too that I, reach out to. I probably would benefit from having some sort of settling down and breathing, because I really appreciated our breathing before we started the talk. It's so simple, but it just sort of shifts the energy. And that's all this is about, as you know. It's about shifting our energy to receive as some sort of vehicle. Again, it's divine and sacred, but you still have to just be very practical and show up and do the work. And I think resistance is a real energetic force. I think my ritual or my daily sort of orientation is I have to wrestle down resistance, which means I have to push back the self-doubt. I have to push back the distraction and the excuses not to write, because I always feel better and I'm nicer and I'm more grounded after I've written, because it's like a meditation to me. And resistance is a real challenge. No matter how much I've written, it's a daily struggle.
Yeah. I think that's pretty normal. Part of it being your job and part of it being
Right,
the spiritual act of it, because part
right,
of it is getting out of the way, right? Getting
right,
our ego out of the way and sitting down and being present to what we're doing. I think that's really important when we can do that, and getting all those self-doubts out. But when we
right.
can come in and center, like you're saying, and just have that ability to receive those messages, because I do think there's a bit of downloading, like downloading
Yes,
that idea, downloading that original thought.
yes,
I don't know. Is there really any original thoughts in the world anymore? Yeah.
right.
But the way in which we interpret it is
Yes.
very important. And so
Well,
I
and
think the discipline is also important, right? Yeah.
so on an ideal morning or day, I have the time to light my incense and maybe have a little background music and, write in my journal, and all that's good and well. But I learned a long time ago, especially with having young kids, they're grown now, that you better be able just to sit and write in carpool or wherever you are. Like, you cannot wait for the ideal environment. And I also learned you can't get away from a project too long, because when you're in it, when you're writing consistently, then the universe starts really delivering, whether through your dreams or you're standing in the line at the pig and you hear a snippet of dialogue, or a friend tells you about a book, or you open your page up to something in a magazine and you find exactly what you needed. So the universe is like talking back to you, like, okay, you're in this, let me help you. But you got to be in it enough that it's sort of in your energy field.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I thought I was just going to do like a little ebook for my 10th year Confessions of a Shower Tapper, right? And all of a
Right.
sudden it became bigger than that. And all of a sudden and the more I worked it, the bigger and bigger. And then I sent it to my editor and now I have corrections and like I haven't been able to get back to it. I've been too busy. And so it's almost like you're saying, like got a little bit out of reach, but I need to
Yeah,
get back to it. Sometimes it's good to get a little breath, but if you get too far
absolutely.
away, and
Yeah.
that's what happened. The project just became bigger than me. I had no idea it was going to turn into what it did. So yeah, I'll get back to it. But I think sometimes we have to allow for that. And I think one of the things
Yes.
too is like I hear this sometimes too when I ask people come in like looking for their purpose. So I want to be a writer. Well, are you writing? Well, no. Well, okay, there we go. Right? We have to start writing. We have to do that. We have to do the thing we want to do. And I think that's part of it. And I was going to ask you, I think you kind of answered it, but do you journal? Do you have like
Oh,
just a
yes.
personal journal? Yeah.
Absolutely. It's sort of a little of both. It is definitely a personal journal where I just write about anything and everything. I whine, I complain, I do whatever, but I also write about things that are important, that are happening, whether personally or on a larger scale. But I try to sort of mark it so when I can come back to it, because I know what I can potentially use in it later in something. So I try to be mindful of that. But writing, it's the generating the ideas, then it's the drafting, and then it's revising. And like you said, once you get to a certain point in your revision, it is good to step away from it and then come back with fresh eyes. So there's a lot of different aspects that have a different rhythm. But no, journaling is huge, and I have to do it daily. I guess that's part of my writing ritual.
Yeah. I think it's like meditation too. It's like just sticking to it, right? Just
Yes,
setting up that discipline and getting into that
right.
headspace. Yeah,
Yes,
for sure. But I agree with you. I think like with any art, any creative endeavor, it does change our consciousness. We get into this like gamma consciousness, which is a
yes,
really nice place to be. Get out of the ego, bring it forward. And it does. We can feel better. It does help us to feel better. We can then zone in. And I think that's really important for any kind of craft and art, right? Yeah.
right. And I think for women, like you were saying, it gives us an expression and an identity that is not the mother, the grandmother, the wife, the sister, the daughter. It gives us, I am a human being that has this to say or do or show, and all those roles contribute to your wisdom or perception or experience, but it just gives you a separate identity. And that's important.
I agree. And I'm thinking, well, I wrote that when I was in California. I would be in California. Baby's due in like 2 weeks. I'm going to be back out there for a couple of weeks. Maybe that's when it'll all come forward. And it'll keep me with that whole concept. Like, okay, I'm still this person, right? I still have my creative endeavors, but yeah, take on that new Mimi role. Yeah, for sure. But I think with any of our crafts, it's important that we do have that for ourselves. We have the discipline, whether it's journaling, whether it's breathing, meditating, whatever that discipline may be. For me, it's even making jewelry. I love to make jewelry, but sometimes I get too busy, right? And then all of a sudden, when that inspiration hits or when I sit down, it's the same thing. If I don't keep working with my hands, they lose the memory of how to hold the tools and how to wrap it. And so then it's a whole nother big startup. So some of that stop, go isn't that helpful. And just being in our craft and doing it, whether it's good or not. I know I went through a phase where nothing I liked I was making in my jewelry, nothing I liked. So I just started playing around like, okay, let's not make it for the outcome. Let's just play around. Right. Let's try new techniques and do this and do that. And eventually it led to something, but taking that pressure off was so helpful too. I think that's with journaling. Yeah.
Well, and just if you can keep the spirit of play and the best part is when you are in the flow and you are aligned and you know that something good, not necessarily important, but good and important is coming through. And will it be published or seen? Maybe that would be great, but that's never, even if it is and people love it, you had that moment in alignment that is far more important than the outcome. But it is very hard not to be to live in the outcomes. We're just human. We all want to be.
We are human and we need to live. And if it's our livelihood, it goes both ways. But I totally agree with you. And sometimes as an artist, I get over it. Like, oh, I've lost the interest. Like I created this deck and now it's done and I don't feel like marketing it or whatever. Right. So sometimes it is just being there. It may not be the most productive way, but I do understand exactly what you're saying. So I think being in that art and being in that expanded state of consciousness is very valuable. It is a meditation into itself. It is a way to get us out of some of that daily grind. And then we have a purpose that we add it to. I think that's also part of the formula. Yeah.
I saw a quote the other day, I think on Substack, which I love Substack. And it said, a writer is someone who basically wants to be left alone to write, but wants a cult following. But, you got to get out and do the dog and pony show if you get a cult following.
I agree. I need a lot of time to myself, but if it's only for myself, what good is it? So I definitely agree. Yeah, I definitely agree. We have to be out there and be able to help others as well, or however we're putting our art out into the world. Yeah, definitely. Well, so much fun getting to know you even deeper. I had no idea you went to Tulane either and worked at Mountain Brook. That was my high school I graduated from way back when. Yeah, how funny. So where can we find you? Where would you like me to direct people to your work? You just mentioned Substack.
So I have a website that you can see all my work there, all my articles on different topics over the years. So it's lanierIsom.com. I'm on Instagram at Lanier Isom, and Substack is called A Little Bit of This and That. What else am I on? I'm still on Twitter, but I'm not sure why.
So Instagram, Substack. Okay.
Yeah, Facebook, but mainly my website, Instagram, and Substack. I would love for people to go to my Substack.
We'll direct them there. Yeah, that'll be awesome. Yeah. So as we go to close, I do like to come back and just leave our listeners with an uplifting message. How do you feel that writing can help to empower the spirit right now?
Well, writing is so powerful and the arts are so powerful that's the first thing people want to shut down when there is fascism on the horizon. So art and writing can literally shift people's consciousness, their awareness. It can create a sense of humanity, of empathy, of understanding, of connection that is threatening to people who don't want a world like that. So it can shift it can become a political shift if need be.
Spoken from the true advocate she is. Yes, it can. It can. And I agree. It is what is cut out. The arts are cut off. And where would we be without the arts? Oh my God, we'd be such a dull black and white world, and we don't need that right now. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So thank you for your insights, whether we journal, whether we write a book, an article, copywriting, whatever it can be very empowering. So thank you. Thank you for your outlook. And again, congratulations on all that you've done with the book, Grace and Grit. Yes. And I will put all those links in the show notes and to the book as well. So thank you for joining us today. Such a pleasure, Lanier, to your spirit.
Thank you, Gary. I loved every minute of it.
Thank you. What a great interview. Yes, the arts are so needed right now. With writing or any form of expression, just start. Take a breath, center your energy, and let it all flow through you. The world needs your creativity. Be sure to check out Lanier's work and find her on Substack. If this is the first time you have heard of Lilly Ledbetter, be sure to share this episode with others, especially other women who need to know how her perseverance is still helping all of us today. So important. And if you need help getting started on your spiritual path, schedule a spiritual upgrade breakthrough call with me, and let's talk about how you can go deeper into your own inner guidance and trust it. Thanks again for listening. I am your host, Terry Ann Hyman, to your spirit. Namaste.